Okay, good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, February 15th, 2024. It's Vav Adar Aleph, Hatafshin Pei Daled, and I'm recording from Tzfat. This is Rivkah Emeinu, part 4, and all of these teachings are based upon the teachings and the sefer of Harav Nir Menussi, and it's entitled Zot Olah, and it's the inner light teachings, Kabbalah and Chassidut, on awakening, elevating, evolving, the secrets of death and life, death and rebirth. You can see her in 3 stages, right, of unfolding. Okay, so this book will be available in English at some point soon. That's what I've heard, please God. In the meantime, we'll gather and share these beautiful teachings. Okay, so we are in the week of Shiva for Moish Geller. This is his Sheva Brachas, right? Right, when a very elevated being passes, we call it a Hilula. It's the wedding celebration. And Shiva is not something sad. Shiva is their Sheva Brachas. When finally, right, the soul is reunited with their true beloved. And Moish, this is your Sheva Brachas. Mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov. Okay. And of course, our hearts and souls, I want to say are continuously, except I'm finding I need sometimes to disconnect unconsciously and consciously because I'm so overwhelmed with what is happening, in our nation, in our country, in our world, in our individual and collective systems. And I'm learning to show up in compassionate presence and talk to the parts and talk the parts through, right? And it's a very beautiful Torah. We're sort of fast forwarding to Rivkah's son, but to put into the space that from Rivkah, from this feminine, will come Yaakov, and remember the night that Yaakov, that's a Yud and an Ayin and a Kuf and a Beit, right? Yaakov goes back over the Yabok River, right? That's a Yud and a Bet and a Kuf, in order to help the Ayin, in order to help all the parts within himself that have been exiled, that are exhausted from over-managing and controlling and trying to be this grown-up that we don't know how to be, right? And the parentified children, parts. And that all happened to Yaakov Avinu because he's the prototype. He's the energetic prototype of this part of the unfolding and the journey, and the Seder Hishtalshalut. It's also sometimes called the order of operations, or how things grow, how things become, how things evolve. And okay, so Rivkah is directly connected that Yaakov is able to offer so much self to these ayin panim, to these shivim umot, to these shivim safot, right? To these shivim shana, right? The 70. Okay. So we're in the Sefer Zot Olah, and we're on page 91. Okay. Ahava ka'esh. הדבר הראשון שראוי להעמיק בו לגבי רבקה הוא הקשר הזוגי שלה עם יצחק. Okay, so it says the first thing that we want to, that it would make sense, right, for us to deeply explore is the marital union between Rivkah and Yitzhak, right? They're partnering. This type of partnering, this both this type of partnering and relationshiping between souls, and this type of partnering and relationshiping between human beings, and this type of relationshiping between parts, right? They have a very important and beautiful map around zugiyut, specifically around the dance of the masculine and the feminine. אחרי הכל, אם התורה מקדישה מילים רבות כל כך לתיאור שידוכים, ואף טורחת ומספרת אותו פעמיים, it says now, understand that the Torah, there are many things. It's many things. It's energy codes. It's actual energetic downloads. It's relationship maps. It's maps of growth and elevation of consciousness, right? But every movement then is very nuanced, and it's very intentional. And so we're noticing that the Torah has taken a great deal of effort. It's not effort, it's effortless, but has allowed a great amount of space to speak about shidduchim, the process of joining souls, the process of masculine and feminine reuniting, and body and soul reuniting, and he says, and so much so that the whole story is of this shidduch, right? With Eliezer and finding her is repeated twice. And at great length in Parshat Chaye Sarah, right? In the Parsha of the life of Sarah, of Sarah. כנראה שיש בו ערך גדול. So that's already inviting us to the wisdom maps are wanting us to notice that this is a very big part of life. This is a very big, important part of this whole journey of evolving and evolution and becoming and transitioning and everything that, right? All of this, and building and connecting Shamayim va'aretz, and building a certain type of consciousness within ourselves and amongst one another, and right? And that shidduchim, right, partnerings are very important, and it's actually almost the secret of everything, right? It's a big, big part of this process. and it's very precious and it's very valuable, right? So really, we're saying that the Torah seems to place life, God seems to place great value on relationships in general, all relationships, and the quality of relationship that we have with ourselves and with each other. And that almost seems to be the primary purpose of the entire Torah, right? Rabbi Akiva gives it over in Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Shammai gives it over Kol ma shesanu alecha al ta'aseh lechaverecha, right? This one, like the energetic line that captures, it's the vessel for the whole journey, right? Which is how we relationship, it's all about relationships, right? And all these holy masters are trying to give us the download in one almost spoonful or one dose, right? So that we really get it, we really feel it, and it really works its way into and through our whole system, right? That the tachlit, the point of all these laws, the point of halakha, the point of tefillah, right? The point of the Taryag, the 613 mitzvot, the point of Torah Sheba'al Peh, the point of the oral Torah, right? The point of Torah Shebiktav, the point of the written Torah, the point of all of the Agadot, all of the storytelling, all of the stories, the point of the Nigunim, the point of the Shirah, the point of the songs and the music, and the silences, right? The point, the Tachlit, the Tchelet, is unity. And the whole dance of relating and relationshiping and how we relate. What's the relationship within us between all the parts? What's the relationship between parts and self? Right? How do we talk to ourselves on the inside? How do we talk on the outside? So he's wanting us to notice that the Torah is wanting us to notice that a great deal of energy is invested into the wisdom teachings centered around how important human relationships are and divine relationships, all relationships, including the human ones, right? So not to kind of bypass into only being like a floating spirit, and not the other way, right? Not to be very, very tied up in human relationships that we don't have time to relationship inside and relationship with true self, relationship with the divine and higher self. And there's many ways that we share language to share that experience. Okay. המיוחד בזוגיות של יצחק ורבקה ניכר כאשר משווים אותה לזו של אברהם ושרה, הורי יצחק. Okay, so it says one thing we're going to do is we're going to explore the type of partnering between Yitzchak and Rivka and kind of contrast that to the type of relationship between Abraham and Sarah, who of course were Yitzchak's parents. It's difficult to find two couples whose relationship and partnering styles would be more opposite, diametrically opposed. Avraham Sarah avru hakol yachad. So Abraham and Sarah, they went through everything as one, deeply unified. Gadlu yachad, they grew up together, literally, physically, in the world of Asiyah. Nis'u be'eretz holadatam. They were married together in their birthplace. Ve'erko yachad et kol mas'otehem ha'artziim ve'haruchanim. To be honest, this is reminding me of my parents. That's how I witnessed their who my ima actually is Sarah, and my Abba is Netanel David, and this is how I experienced them. That like I watched them like they grew up together, and they came from one type of consciousness, and they moved into and grew into another consciousness, and I've watched them partner, and they really do everything together. So much so that they started a business together, so they worked together all day, every day. Then they would have clients at night, and they would do, the work for those clients together at night. And Shabbos were, and they also had an ability for beautiful spaciousness, that they would spend Shabbos apart from each other sometimes, not from any place of needing to fight to take space, but to be honest about needing to take space, just to come back to one's own center and self, and also rejuvenate. And okay, so he says there's this type of partnering, and Avram and Sarah had this type of partnering where they come together, the masculine and feminine come together at a very early age, and they support one another, and they go through it all together. Okay. And every challenge in life, they meet it. The masculine and feminine are dancing together, and they're growing together, and they're failing and falling together, and they're encouraging each other. And that's one type of soul relationship. Okay. Yitzchak v'Rivkah l'umat zot gadlu lachud. He says there's another way that the masculine and feminine unite. And that's that when they spend the majority of their lives apart, and only much later in their story, right? Again, yes, Chazal say that Rivkah was 3 years old. Again, we need to understand what that means according to the light, the inner Kabbalah and Hasidut teachings, the mystical teachings. But right now, let's just be makubalim and receive what it's saying, and even if there's maybe contradictions to other Torah that we know, it's saying here that Yitzchak and Rivkah grew up separately. Each one had to grow its own consciousness to a certain degree alone before they could unite. B'merchak gadol ube svivot shonot legamre, at great physical distance from one another, and also in totally different environments, right? Totally different value systems, total different degree of feeling supported in the world, or there's a place for you in the world, right? In our language today, we might also say that Yitzchak came from a relatively very secure attachment system, even though there was, hi honey, good morning. That's such a beautiful picture. Even though there was, a lot obviously of wounding in the system with Hagar and Ishmael and that whole story, but between Abraham and Sarah, there was this unity. So Yitzchak did get, a measure of a healthy attachment tree. And whereas Rivkah comes from, we said the system of Lavan Ha'arami, it's a very different system. It's a system that fosters independence. It's a system where, I think that's the main thing we would say. It's a system that grows very independent type of fruit and trees, right? B'chavana. And okay, so Yitzchak lo yatsa kol yamav מתחומי ארץ ישראל, עטוף כאתרוג בארץ הקודש ובמשפחה יראת שמיים. It says, Yitzchak, Chazal tell us, he never left the borders of Eretz Israel. So, right, so if we would run that through Pardes, right, the four different levels of consciousness, so that doesn't just mean that his physical body didn't leave Eretz Israel. That means he never left a certain level of purity of consciousness, of innocence, of Eretz Israel, of wholeness within himself, and it's really interesting because it doesn't seem like the Akedah shattered him, which was what I always thought. It seems to have been a rite of passage to make Yitzchak into a holy fire. It definitely was a rite of passage. It's almost like a very primal rite of passage of like leaving the boy out in the jungle, and it looks horrible and cruel, but it's actually so he can find his own independence and strength. Please excuse me. Could be my parents. Hold on, sorry. Okay, but just because of the current conditions in Israel, I feel compelled to check if my family is trying to reach out. I don't even know who it was, but it was Hebrew. So I lost my train of thought. Okay, but anyway, it's saying that Yitzchak had a certain protection in his life, and it reminds me, actually, I know this offends some people and inspires others, so because it inspires me, I'm going to choose that side, where this reminds me of the story where the Buddha Siddhartha was also protected in the early part of his life from all pain and suffering, from death and from illness and from poverty and from war and from violence. And right, it reminds me of that story. Okay, whereas Rivkah is sunken in it, right? She comes into the world where it's very obvious that people are not living a spiritual life, and they're exiled from their spiritual selves, at least on the level of Olam Asiyah, right? Okay, so ואילו רבקה גדלה בחוץ לארץ בין עובדי אלילים, ואברהם היה צריך לשלוח את עבדו כדי למצואה ולקחתה משם. And it says, Rivkah lived in such a different value system, such a different nervous system, such a different belief system, that Abraham had to send Eliezer to take Rivkah out of that system. Okay? בעוד אברהם ושרה צמחו והגיעו למדרגתם הרוחנית הגבוהה יחד, so whereas Abraham and Sarah grew to higher consciousness together, mamash together, even in the physical planes, כפי שהתבטא בהחלפת שמותיהם באותו יום. And the place where we most deeply experience and see this is the day that both got a name change, and the name change was an intimate, energetic shifting between the two of them. And we said we know that because the gematria of Sarai and Avram is the same gematria as Sarah and Avraham. their unity, their oneness didn't shift. There was inner exchanges where one was giving more energy and one was receiving more energy, and because they were rebalancing in their connection, but their essential oneness was always there. צמיחתם הרוחנית של יצחק ורבקה התרחשה לחוד, whereas with this levels, these these lights of consciousness, these parts of waking up, these parts of awareness, they're separate until Hashem reunites them. And that's called Yitzchak and Rivkah. And they go through everything that they go through separately. And it's not at great distance. And it's not the time for them to unite. And they have to go through a certain level of growth on their own and individually and become an individual before they can become a partnering. And I think it would be beautiful that we add that we're not just talking about men and women here partnering, although we also are. We're talking about the type of relationship where the body and soul feel very harmonious in the being from the very beginning of life. And some souls and bodies that do all their work seemingly separate and only get purified and healed to a certain degree that they can partner and be friends and be kind to each other and support each other, right? So it's body and soul, it's masculine and feminine, it's the physical world and the spiritual world. Some people would even say it's religion and science, right? Okay. Yitzchak avar et hachavaya hamechonnet shel chayav. So Yitzchak had to have his own life experiences, right? Like, of course, the key one would be the Akedah, in order to go through some type of transformation and be able to partner with Rivkah. So it's like each person has their own, I want to say almost like mastery period, like imagine again in an orchestra, each person having to learn and master their part before they get together and have shared rehearsal and then shared performance, right? And then like when I was little, I was in orchestra when I was 9 years old, and it was called Pathfinders, right? Which is cute. And that's like the Abraham and Sarah level, where you're all not playing at a good level. You're making lots and lots of mistakes, but you're doing it together and you're learning together. And from Pathfinders, we went to Pioneer, and from Pioneer, we went to Junior Symphony, and from Junior Symphony, you would go on to a major, real big symphony, right? Hopefully. Okay, so so he says it was imperative that Yitzchak have the experience of what's called the Akedah, the binding of his energies. And again, let's do a v'nahafachu. Let's flip a lot of these stories that we see, experience, and teach as tragic, and reveal the real light teaching inside. That on that day of the Akedah, it was again Yitzchak knowing how to come back into wholeness. The akod means to bind. It means to unify. It means that Yitzchak had a propensity to have a lot of gvura parts in him that would be very mean and bullying on the inside or the outside, right? It's excessive gvura. In other words, over critic parts, over perfectionistic parts, over exacting, almost even overly yearning for goodness in the world, right? Over pressure on oneself and on others to live up to the highest expectations, to perform always at 100% of not 100% of what my 100% is today, but some type of golden rule and standard of 100% performance all the time, right? And it's a beautiful quality, right? Of like coming from such a pure heart and wanting things to be so whole and so beautiful and so harmonious and their best, and if every being to really be pushed to give forth its fullest potential, right? So it's almost like the din that pushes so to squeeze out, the pressure on the olive to squeeze out that one golden drop of olive oil, right? It's like excessive gvura that does two things. One thing that it does is squeeze out the hidden light, right? Because we might not have the strength anymore to access that light ourselves, or to, believe that we can shine that light, through us. Yeah, but this gvura has like, sorry, I'm just not sure in what order we should do this. Okay, maybe we'll just say one more thing. And that is that we saw something tragic in the Akedah, but in the inner wisdom teachings, that was actually the day of self-mastery for Yitzchak and Avraham. It was the day of enlightenment. That was their day of enlightenment. Where, right, Yitzchak got healed from his tendency for over gvura on that day. And he learned that he could hold those parts. To la'akod is, right, that there's a self within him that can offer help to those over gvura parts. And those energies could be held, la'akod, right? You understand the energies that say kill your son, or the energies that say God is a very exacting, strict, judgmental, murderous God. Those energies needed help. Those parts needed help on that day, both within Avraham and within Yitzchak. Perhaps, I know that's a lot of chutzpah on my part to say that, but it seems to me that's what also the texts are saying. Okay, so Yitzchak went through this process of his over gvura getting healed, and now he's ready. His soul is ready to be reunited with Rivkah, right? They each had to go through a process in their own tree, in their own life, in their own story, separate and with distance between them, and living in totally different world and value systems. And each have an experience of being able to access higher self and offer from the place of higher self help to the imbalanced parts. Rivkah is so loving and kind, and you might think that she would stay with her family because she was so loving and kind. But when they asked her, do you want to stay in this level of consciousness but stay with us and still be part of our family? She had to answer, I have to be what I have to be, right? which was a fixing of her over chesed. It was allowing her finally to become a container for what she needs to be a container for. She needs to be a container for what she experiences as the most beautiful, harmonious, highest truth. Even if it looks like the opposite of that on the outside. So it's just again saying two types of relationships, Avraham and Sarah, where they grow together in consciousness, they fall together, they fail together, they study together, they learn together. They're always supporting each other, right? And another type where each one is like purified alone, separately. Each one will have tests and challenges to bring out their individuality, their self, and then they'll come together and offer that real, true self to one another. So it's a relationship, if we might call Avram and Sarah, that there is self, and also there's lots of parts, and they work through the parts together. And we might call Yitzchak and Rivkah the process and the journey of accessing inner self, whole self, each one alone in the world, right? But then having finally cultivated the ability to hold and accept the self's parts and voices, right? And become the inner father and the inner mother to those parts, then they could have an actual human face-to-face relationship from self to self, like inner self, whole self, divine self, right? Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Okay. רבקה הפגינה את מעלותיה הגדולות, מידת גמילות החסדים, והעוז לצאת לארץ רחוקה. And in the meantime, Yitzchak was learning to offer whole self to his overly gvuradic parts. So overly scared, overly controlling, overly violent, overly isolating, overly raging, overly all that, overly perfectionistic, overly having like expectations of perfectionism from people, overly critical, overly exacting, right? It's everything that leans the tree to the left side, over precision, right? And Rivkah was working with the right side of the tree, which is, again, rebalancing it. So Yitzchak is going through the Akedah, and he's working with the left side of the tree, and Rivkah is working with Gemilut Chasadim, and to what extent this chesed goes, and when it comes to needing to draw from the left side to push back and fight for independence, so that she could grow a self and have a self that's separate from that value system and that, right, where she came from. So they're both doing this. And then there's a way that they become reunited. Okay. כל ההבדלים האלו נעוצים בשורשם הרוחני השונה של הזוגות. Right, so all of these differences, it's a different root system, the type of family system, the type of ecosystem, the type of soulmating, the type, right, called Avraham and Sarah, and the type that's called Rivkah and Yitzchak. It says they have different roots. They're different soul roots. They're actual different soul roots. Shoshei neshamot. Lefia Kabbalah, so according to Kabbalah, Avraham v'Sarah kshurim lesfirat hachesed. Avraham and Yitzchak are energetically modeling and connected to and flowing from the energy center called chesed, or unconditional loving kindness. And also energetically, it's constant positive charge. It's constant outpouring of energy. בעוד יצחק ורבקה קשורים לספירת הגבורה. And Yitzchak and Rivkah are deeply connected to the sfira of gvura, the whole left side of the tree, right? Avram and Sarah were working with the right side of the tree. Yitzchak and Rivkah are, now that's not to say that Yitzchak is gvura and Rivkah is chesed. It's saying that they're partnering together for the healing and the balance of the left side of the tree, where Abraham and Sarah were partnering together for the healing and the balance and setting the root system for healthy right side of the tree. Okay, so again, Abraham and Sarah are setting healthy roots for balancing chesed, and Yitzchak and Rivkah are setting healthy roots for balancing gvura. And if you would see it in a tree, in the root system, right, each one is setting deep, deep roots to keep the tree balanced and harmonious. Sorry. Okay. אחת המשמעויות לכך היא שאהבתם של אברהם ושרה משולה ליסוד המים. And it says, you know, one of the things the Holy Masters teach us is that they're hinting that Abraham and Sarah are connected to the element of water, the way that water works together, the way that water flows, the way that water moves. That's the felt sense of the soul mating of Abraham and Sarah, the partnering, the masculine and feminine that feels and moves like water. בעוד אהבתם של יצחק ורבקה משולה ליסוד האש, where the relationshiping of Yitzchak and Rivkah is likened to the element of fire. עם כל העליות והמורדות של יחסי אברהם ושרה, זוגיותם היא זוגיות של כמים הפנים לפנים. Says, even though there was a lot of ratzov show, there was a lot of ups and downs in the relationshiping between Abraham and Sarah, but their partnering is a type of partnering called kemayim hapanim el panim, that there's eye-to-eye contact, there's resonance, their movements are happening together. There's a lot of loving kindness. There's a lot of energetic loving kindness. שבה בני הזוג דומים זה לזה, וחוואים את הדברים ביחד. So what he's really trying to, from a perspective of teaching about zugiut and soulmating and relationshiping, he's wanting us to notice that there's, you know, oftentimes people will ask me, and I had the same questions when, you know, still, I guess, right, when being open to meeting and being with my partner, that is it better, Kilo, what's the better, higher formula to be more similar, or, you know, kind of like heals like, or to be shnei hafachim, to be diametrically opposed, to be opposites, which is a whole type of zivug that Rabbi Nachman teaches about. It's not stam. It's not just like nothing or coincidence, right? It's called the zugiut of shnei hafachim, that you're literally opposite. You're looking in the mirror of each other, but you're you know, you're one thing, he's one thing. You're the other. This is a very, 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 very deep secret. It's talking about the secrets of domeh, to be like something, and shinui, to be different from something else, right? One of these things is not like the other. Remember that from Sesame Street? One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong, right? So this is the Holy Masters are also weaving for us into the space a whole exploration about parts and unity and unification of parts and souls that very naturally and easily come back together in wholeness and harmony, souls that it takes them a lot of time and individual work in order for them to meet again and come back together in love. Right? Souls that grow the best in partnership, and souls that grow, even though they want partnership, they actually grow the best alone and separate, and only then come into the partnership. Interestingly enough, right, we also had an example of this with Nadav and Avihu, right? That the Ishbitzer Rebbe, the Me'ashiloach, he says, right, that they said we only want to get married if we can be married and do marriage on the level of Adam v'Chava began Eden lifnei hachet, right? Such a deep yearning for something so whole, but it's a post Geula yearning and vision. And right, there's souls that just say we're not equipped to live galut, right? That those are usually the more tohu type of souls, right? They want the experience of a healed world, and they want it now. They actually want it yesterday, right? And oddly enough, those souls often need space apart from their highest teachers, their highest soulmates, their highest union and fixing, even maybe in their family system. Right? It's that Rivkah type of soul that has to leave and go to Eretz Yisrael. I have this in my own family, and it's so interesting to me that my name is Rivkah and Reva, right? And you know, again, the Holy Masters are wanting us to take note that souls, when we say that ki adam etz hasadeh, that a human being is like a tree, we mean that quite literally, in that some trees need, what are the optimal conditions for their growth and for them to be and become a healthy tree and produce beautiful fruit. And some need sand, and some need humidity, and some need dry heat, and some, right? And to really understand that there's different trees with different needs and different root systems and different souls. And it's very healing, I think, for some souls that might be quite advanced in years and still have not found their whole self to self partner. I mean like true self to true self, elephant love, if you will, partner, right? That there are souls that need to go through whatever they go through separately, Yes, wink, wink. Yes. Okay. הזוגיות של רבקה ויצחק, לעומת זאת, היא זוגיות של רשפיה רשפי אש. It says, right, the type of soul mating of Yitzchak and Rivka, in contrast, was from Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, verse 8, chapter 6, right? Perek Chet Pasuk Vav from Shir HaShirim, Rishapea Rishpe Esh, that the nature of their relationship, their soul relationship, is more like the element of fire, holy fire. Esh Kodesh. Sheba bnei hazug hafuchim umanugadim. And in that type of relationship, their points of view are, and their beliefs can be oppositional and the polar opposite. Now, I want to also invite for us in, because we're soul explorers, right? That you can have a relationship that has Avraham and Yitzchak parts, and you can have, and at the same time, Yitzchak and Rivkah parts. Like I'm thinking, of a particular person in my life. And in one way, like we're so similar. Like we're kind of both very emotional and softer and more gentle and quiet and introverted and kind of psychic and similar wounding, right? Like our wounds, maybe some like social awkwardness and blah blah, right? But then there's very Yitzchak Rivka parts that are very opposite. You know, like I find with this particular person that I tend to have to feel a very almost like inner, very gentle energy, and this person, Lamot, all of their sort of quietness and inwardness, like to me, they have like this burning fire inside of them. Like they're very almost din. Their inner core actually feels to me very din. And I think part of what Chazal is wanting us to explore here also is the fascinating concept of the parts sharing relationship and self to self sharing relationship, right? And I guess that's as much as I can say for this minute. Okay. וכל אחד מביא עמו נקודת מבט שונה על הדברים. So he's saying something so beautiful. He's saying when you're similar, you're walking, side by side, hand in hand, and you're seeing life the same way. It's the same view, and you're experiencing life the same way because you're walking linked, arm in arm. But when when a face-to-face relationship, which we're saying weirdly is the most intimate, everything is backwards, right? Your right is their left and their left, and right. And what the person on this side is seeing is this side of reality, right? And what the person who's facing this way is seeing is this side of reality. And they're actually seeing total opposite ends and sides of the world and the room, right? So how can they ever agree on anything? This one is saying, this is reality. And this one is going, nah, this is reality. And by the way, can you see the two fish, like from Pisces, swimming in opposite directions? Here's the oneness. And then it's like, wait, no, right? Okay. על השאלה הקלאסית, אם בני זוג צריכים להיות דומים או הפכים משלימים, משיבה התורה. So the classic question, is it better for loving, for married partners, but maybe it's for any partners, maybe it's also friendship. Is it better to be with people like you, or people who are the opposite of you? Meshiv HaTorah, so the Torah replies, Talui b'shorosh nishmatam shel bnei hazug. Well, that's a beautiful question. It depends on your soul root. Isn't that lovely? Some souls thrive, some souls need a partnering they're very, 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 very alike. And it's a like heals like type of thing, like it's homeopathy, right? And we can even apply that to organs or systems in the body or parts in the body that may respond well and heal in a like heals like kind of situation. And there's other souls that come from a different soul root. And, like I've noticed a lot of like sort of gentle, seemingly gentle men marrying very fiery pilpilit, Sephardi, that real fiery type of feminine energy. And where I wouldn't naturally think to put those people together, actually, they often thrive together, right? Or at least it's something that soul is craving in order to grow, right? So this is the question again. Is it better to have two souls that are similar, or better to have souls that are complete opposite? And as always, the Kabbalah is so beautifully, right, in service of peace, says it's both, and it depends on your soul root. Now, I know some of you have mental parts, that's the inner scientist that's going to now start. I can see you doing this as you're listening to the recording and asking, which one am I? Which one am I? And how do I know which one am I? And which one do I need? And should I find someone who's like me? And I know you're laughing now because I called you out on this part, and it's okay. Right. And that's not really our business to know. It's just teaching us that this is the case, that there are trees and plants that need these conditions to grow, and trees and plants that need these conditions to grow. אם הם נשמות של מים, כמו אברהם ושרה, נכון להם להיות דומים. אם נשמות של אש, כיצחק ורבקה, הפוכים. It says, well, if they're very watery souls, they come from the world of water, of chokhmah, then they'll grow better if they're very alike, and they share points of view and they share experiences. But if they're very fiery, then that might feel very boring to a fire type of soul. And as much as they might say they want inner peace, there's parts of them that love the thrill of adventure, of discovering something so different from them and so opposite. And so it can be also very healing, like, something that we've craved, let's say, okay, I'm not going to give an example. Okay. Haideal hamonomagi. Okay, so now we're exploring this idea of, sorry, I'm just opening the chat. Someone wrote in the chat. Yeah, it's so profound. Okay, so that's so beautiful. So maybe because if you said that, I will give a personal example. So I find that, let's say in myself, that as friends, I really vibe with the very gentle masculine, and the protective masculine and the safe masculine. And I love it and I honor it so deeply. And then I find that but my little girl parts want a very strong masculine energy, that I don't really like that energy. I don't really like the dominant, aggressive, alpha energy. And yet I see that my little girl really does love that Papa Bear protective energy, that strength. And it doesn't have to show up as father strength, but that kind of the masculine that can offer me strength. I'm much more attracted to that romantically, or, than the super, super gentle masculine, which I love. And those are even in some ways deeper soul parts, soulmates for me. But in Asiya, my body, my consciousness is really wanting strong protective male energy. That's just an example from my own life. TMI, as my dad would say, too much information. But I think sometimes it's good to give examples. Okay. So this is exploring the idea of monogamy, right? And again, it's not only exploring it from a level of like a social scientist, which it is also, but we're exploring it as mystics, or exploring it as mekubalot, mekubalim, right? As receivers of the mystic tradition. So why, for example, would Avraham, that type of masculine, that type of soul, be with first Hagar and then Sarai, right? Iska, Sarai. And not only go back to Hagar, who is likely Keturah, right after Rivkah Emeinu transitioned, passed, died, right? And also had a lot of concubines, right? Pilagshot, if that's how we say it, right? And what is it about the nature of that soul and their relationship to the masculine and the feminine, and the relationship to consciousness, and their relationship to lights and vessels, and right, there's lots and lots to explore. And then, Yaakov is going to have the four, right? Leah, Rachel. It's really in the order, I guess we would say, right? Leah, Zilpah, Rachel, and Bilhah. Right? And why in that order? And right, these are really, really deep questions about all the masculine parts and all the feminine parts, and masculine sort of wholeness and healing, and feminine sort of wholeness and healing. And that's really what we're exploring here, like far beyond the details of any one couple or one person's story, or even as an archetype. It's even bigger than an archetype. Okay. העובדה שאהבתם של יצחק ורבקה הייתה אהבה של אש קשורה למאפיין מרכזי נוסף שלהם. It says, okay, so it's clear that this love of Yitzchak and Rivka was this fiery, the love of fire, of the element of fire. And it's connected to an additional like motif that they share. Heyotam hazug hamonamagi hayachid mibena avot ve'imahot, and that is they share another thing that is archetypal almost, that they're the only couple out of all the ancestors who were monogamous and who spent their whole life only. They spent a big chunk of it apart, but once they united, they found wholeness in themselves and in each other. Right? And it's again, all these paradoxes, right? Because they don't soulmate until, again, yachasit, I'm just saying, relatively, it's very important that, right, that when they finally meet, right, Yitzchak is already 37 years old. That's very intentional, right? Okay, good. Let's just go into the text. Okay. כידוע, התורה מתירה לגבר לשאת יותר מאישה אחת. He says, okay, so first let's put into the space that for whatever strange reason, our Torah does not forbid a man marrying more than one woman. And again, like that, for me, this has always been something that I need to explore. Why, right? ועל כן, אישים מקריים רבים, כולל שניים מבין שלושת האבות, נשאו מספר נשים. Okay, so we can see that Avraham was attached to more than one woman, and Yitzchak, and Yaakov was attached to more than one woman. And, just to put it into the mix, Esav was also attached to more than one woman, and only Yitzchak What is it about this soul and this soul root, this type of soul root of Abraham, of Yitzchak and Rivkah, right? That they only really feel that wholeness with each other. Okay. Not to water Disney fairy tales or anything, but the Torah is saying it. Rabim משתמשים בעובדה זו כראייה לכך שכל מוסד המשפחה המונוגמי הוא המצאה מאוחדת ביהדות ואינו משקף את עמדתה. אוקיי. אך הדעה הזו אינו מדויקת כלל. לא זו בלבד שהתורה משום מקום אינה מעודדת ריבוי נשים, אלא שהיא מבהירה בדרכים רבות שהדבר אינו רצוי, ושהאידיאל הוא זוגיות מונוגמטית. Okay, so he's saying here, well, it's interesting. Why does the Torah not asal? Why does it not forbid? If monogamy is the ideal, why is it even mutar? Why is it even allowed halachically for a man to marry multiple women, right? Because isn't the Torah about health? Isn't it about right living? Isn't it about serving God in the most whole way and elevated way? So, right? So it's asking these questions. If monogamy is the highest, then why didn't the Torah set that as the halacha, that men have to only be with one woman, right? And if it's not the highest, right? If we're to learn that because the Torah allows men to marry many women, then maybe that's the ideal, because isn't the Torah wisdom the ideal? Right? That's what he's asking. That's what all the Chachamim are asking. And yet it seems to be not this and not that. It seems that the Torah believes that monogamy is the highest, but not everybody wants to live the highest, because it comes with other things. It comes with very deep levels of preparation. It comes with a very deep will. It comes from, a total shikuf. A face-to-face relationship means you're looking in the mirror, you're seeing yourself, you're meeting the parts of yourself that you don't like. You're meeting what's opposite you're meeting your own exiles. So like for me, for example, I have like a lot of fear around men's rage. To be in a face-to-face soulmate relationship would probably be that I would be dealing with a man who struggles with his rage, right? Because it's a face-to-face relationship. It's calling forth from each of you what you don't want to see, right? What you don't want to know. Not easy work at all. But can you feel that's why it's a fire relationship. You're burning each other not in a bad way, in a like a purifying fire. But you can feel that that's very deep, right? It's very deep. Okay. So again, we're asking the question, is the Torah saying that multiple wives for a man is the ideal? Is it lechatchila or b'di aved? Is it the ideal, or is it, well, we're just trying to deal with human beings and nature on the level that they're at? Is monogamy the ideal, or is monogamy somehow limiting connection? We don't know, right? So all of this is on the table. As you can hear, my name. How are you doing? Major shibutzim, getting ready for Geula, and it's not always easy on my nervous system. Okay. Achat hadrachim elu hi ha'uvda sheshloshet ha'avot ratzu lechatchila leset rak isha achat. He says, now start to notice where the holy masters are giving us a map, and that is this. Notice that lechatchila, right? Their highest first vision and intention of each one of these avot, of each one of these of them, our male forefathers, right, ancestors, wanted initially to only marry one woman or be with one woman or have children with one woman, but it didn't work out like that. So Avraham, his highest dream, right, he never imagined that he was going to be with other women or multiple women, right? But Sarah wasn't having children, and then Hagar got introduced into the space, okay? So it says, if you notice, Avraham only wanted to be with one woman, and Yaakov also only wanted to be with Rachel, right? The fact that he got tricked and right, ended up marrying Leah first, but in his inner yearning, what he wanted was to find all of this wholeness, all of the sense of home, all healing in, right, our one true love, right? And he says, just notice and be conscious of the word here, rak, right? Reish kuf, only, rak. And of course, you'll notice that in the word Rivkah, Resh and Bet and Kuf and Hey, you can rearrange the letters to get Rak Ba, only in her, only her, right? Only her, only one woman who holds within her, healthy mother energy and healthy daughter energy and healthy sister energy and healthy lover energy, all in one woman. Okay, so it says, notice the word rak here. שלושת האבות רצו לכתחילה לשאת רק אישה אחת. Avraham wanted only Sarah. Yaakov wanted only Rachel, and Yitzchak wanted only Rivkah. Avraham רצה רק את שרה, יצחק רצה רק את רבקה, ויעקב רצה רק את רחל. שניים מהאבות לא הצליחו להגשים את משאלתם. He says, now understand that the lechatchila vision of the masculine is, yes, to find it all in one woman. But Avraham, that was not his story. And Yaakov, that was not his story. Avraham nitbakesh biyadei ishto laset gam et shivchata kadei sheteled bimkoma. Avraham was asked by his wife to take Hagar and so that there would be children. The Yaakov oletz biyadei chamav laset gam et Leah. And of course, Yaakov was tricked by the hand of his father-in-law into marrying also Leah. ואז נתבקש בידי שתי נשותיו לשאת את שפחותיהן. And then, both Rachel and Leah offered their handmaidens, to Yaakov as well, also to have more children. אבל אחד כן הצליח, but there is one couple that did actually have the true love story. Yitzchak Avinu notar kol chayav nasui lRivka bilvad. That each one only knew the masculine in each other their whole lives, right? Yitzchak only knew Rivka, and Rivka only knew Yitzchak. ולשניים הייתה זוגיות מונומגית לעילה ולעילה. And they had this monogamous one and only one type. Are they going to be? Hold on. Okay. All right, I guess I'll finish this paragraph because it's driving me a little crazy. Right, and they kept elevating together. אין זה מצלם שהתורה מעריכה לגבי חפציהם יותר מ... Okay. So he says, wow, okay, I guess I'm gonna end the recording for today because they're drilling opposite me and I can't hear.